I get asked a lot for book recommendations. What should you read if you're a man going through an unwanted divorce? So I'm going to share some of my favorites with you today. If you don't know me, I'm Rachael Sloan. I am a life coach and a master NLP practitioner, and I help men move on from divorce. I help them get healthy, get happy, and move forward in their lives with confidence. So these are some of the books that I share with my clients, and hopefully they'll help you on this journey too. So the first one is called The Full Body Presence. This book is for you if you are stuck in deep emotional pain. If your emotions are overwhelming, if you are struggling with depression, if you're struggling to go to work or just function in the world on the day-to-day, start with this book. You don't even have to read the whole thing. You just have to read through the first exercise. I think it's in chapter 4. And there's an audio recording that'll come with the book. Get through that first exercise and listen to that audio recording and listen to it a couple of times, maybe for 2 or 3 weeks. What this does, what Suzanne Skurlock-Durana, the author of this book, helps you do is tap into the seat of conscious awareness, the medial prefrontal cortex of your brain. If you've watched my other videos, you've heard me talk about this part of the brain. It's important because it can communicate directly with the emotional brain, with the limbic system. It's the only part of the conscious mind that has direct neural pathways connecting to the emotional brain. So if you're feeling overwhelmed emotionally, she's going to help you in this very simple guided exercise tap into that awareness, which is going to start to calm your nervous system. This is a great jumping off point for beginning to manage depression, overwhelm, anxiety, grief, and if you keep going with it, the other exercises, the other tools in this book will also help you tap into that deeper sense of who you are. So if you're experiencing a loss of self-confidence, a lot of self-doubt, fear about what this means about you and who you are, this book can help. Now, after that first exercise, it can get a little bit like energy woo-woo language, which is not my favorite. I really like the biology, the neuroscience, what's happening in the brain, but it's really effective and she's very good and she taps into all the right networks to start to get results. So I hope you'll check that out. That's The Full Body Presence by Suzanne Skurlock-Durana. That's where I'd start if things are really difficult. Another place to begin when things are overwhelming is The Upward Spiral by Alex Korb. If you are a little bit more of a sciencey brained person, you might want to start here. Although honestly, if you, like me, prefer that kind of logical mindset, I would challenge you to read The Full Body Presence first. It's going to feel less comfortable, but you need it. Those of us like you and me who want to hang out in our logical brains, we struggle to communicate with and manage our emotions. So uncomfortable as it is, learning to tap into that part of the brain is going to be so helpful. But Alex takes a little bit different approach. He starts with the neuroscience of depression, helping you understand what's happening in the brain, why it's happening, and then he gives you very simple, very concrete tools, things that you can do step by step to start to change the spiral. Instead of spiraling down, we're going to start spiraling up. And what he taps into is the plasticity of the brain and the fact that there's some entropy in the brain, right? You've experienced this. Once you get something bad happens in your day, a painful event happens, the brain wants to chew on it, right? And it starts to spin and you start to spiral. Like one thing can go wrong in the morning and it can start to take over your whole day. Well, that same pattern can happen in reverse. We can take small moments of success, small moments that feel positive, and turn that into an upward spiral. So Alex gives you great, tangible, easy to implement tools to do that. So if you're in a place where you're feeling overwhelmed by emotion, these are the 2 books to start with: The Upward Spiral and The Full Body Presence. Then the next level I would go to, I hate the title of this book, I have to say, but the content's really good. It's called Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself by Dr. Joe Dispenza. The reason I like it is because he helps you to understand and identify the habits of thinking and feeling and like automatic default reaction in your life that has probably been defining your sense of who you are, your personality, the way you show up. People just say, well, I'm not really an emotional person, or I tend to keep things inside, or I'm really driven and motivated. But we have these stories about who we are. He'll help you understand where those actually come from, how they're rooted in our belief systems, where we learn those belief systems, and how we can start to change some of those belief systems. Things that we think are ingrained, parts of who we are, parts of our personality, are just thoughts. right? Our personality is made up of our action. Well, he explains this much better than me, but our personalities are defined by how we respond, right? How we feel in different situations, how we show up. Well, all of that is created by our beliefs, and our beliefs are just thoughts that we've thought so much we don't have to think them anymore. But at some point we learn to think them. So what Dispenza gives you in this book is a beautiful understanding first, and then a recipe for choosing who you want to be, choosing how you want to be. And so especially if you've gone through a divorce and you see things that happened in your marriage or things that didn't happen, and you're feeling really stuck as that person, and you don't know how to move forward or into healthier relationships, this book can give you a lot of freedom. It'll give you a compassionate understanding of how you came to be the person you are today, why you made the choices you made in the past, but he'll also give you those concrete tools to start to shift that, to start being able to choose who you want to be and how you want to be going forward. So, Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself by Dr. Joe Dispenza. If you want to learn more about him before you read this book, just give him a search here on YouTube. He's got tons of videos and interviews, and you can get a real sense for his style. He also does a lot of research. He partners with a couple of universities, and he's doing some fascinating work with the HeartMath Institute. So he's really trying to bridge the gap between the science and the woo-woo, trying to understand like what's actually happening in the brain and with the emotions. It's really, really good stuff. So the next books are not for everyone. They're going to depend a little bit on where you are. One of them is called Legendary by Tommy Breedlove. This book is all about becoming a particular kind of person, becoming a legendary person, becoming a successful person. It's not necessarily what everyone's looking for, what everyone wants. I like it if you're going through a divorce because it captures in a very simple and clear way the power that we all have to determine our futures. Most of us think that our past dictates what can happen in the future, right? Well, we've experienced this, and it seems logical that the future will follow along like our past, but our past doesn't determine our future. And if you think about how you got to where you are today, you got here now in this very moment, wherever you are in your life, because of the actions you took in the past, right? They led you to this point. So your future is not determined by the actions of your past, they're determined by the actions you take between now and the future, right? Where you are 10 years from now is dependent on what you do today and tomorrow and 5 years from now. That's going to lead you there. This chunk of time between the present and the future, you can choose what to do with it. You don't have to let it be defined by what you did up until now. You could do something totally different. People do every single day, but you get to choose. And so this book is fun because he really shows you the power and how big and how bold and how really ambitious you can be with that identity and choosing who you want to become. So if you need some inspiration and you want to get a sense of belief that you could choose something different, this book is an excellent resource. So I will be the first to admit I have not read this entire book yet because it just came out, I think 3 weeks ago. This is The Myth of Normal by Dr. Gabor Mate. I'm starting it. It's amazing. It's also really long and there's a lot of research in here. So if you want a sampler of this to see if this is something that's going to support you, again, do a YouTube search for interviews with Gabor Mate. He did a really good one on Joe Rogan and he's done a couple others. This book is, I think, I haven't even finished it yet. I think it's one of the most important books that is in our world today, because we are living in a society that really blames the individual for their problems, right? Especially when it comes to mental health. We treat people with depression, bipolar disorder, with anxiety disorders, with schizophrenia. We treat all of these mental health disorders as though there's some kind of internal failing. This person is just broken, right? They came into the world, it's genetic, right? There's all of this, it's all framed in the physiology of what's happening in the brain and what's wrong with you if you have these problems. He kind of blows the head off that whole story and he forces us to confront what our culture is doing, how we are baking trauma in from birth through childhood, through the teenage years, how all of us, even when we grow up in pretty decent families and decent homes, are experiencing these relationship style traumas and how that plays out in our workaholism, in our relationship challenges, in our inability to connect or to process or handle our own emotions. So this is The Myth of Normal: Trauma, Illness, and Healing in a Toxic Culture. I don't really know what else to say about this book except please go listen to one of the interviews with Dr. Mate. He has a real gift for taking a very complicated topic and distilling it down into just such a clear, simple, understandable message. It's really, really powerful. I'm so excited to finish this book, and I hope you'll explore Dr. Mate's work, whether you read the book or just listen to his interviews. All right, one more. This is Lost Connections by Johann Hari. Now, if your divorce is fresh or you're in the middle of separation or divorce right now, please stop watching this. Don't read this book. Don't read it right now. I think for some people, this book is going to make things worse before it helps make things better. So if you're in a place where things are really painful, the wounds are fresh, you're maybe feeling that emotional overwhelm, start somewhere else. Start with the upward spiral, start with the full body presence. Save this for a year or two down the road when you're feeling a little bit more at peace with everything that's happened. So Johann Hari, Lost Connections, Why You're Depressed and How to Find Hope. Johann Hari is an amazing journalist, and he went out and he spent a couple of years researching this book. He talked to all kinds of scientists, psychologists, researchers, lots and lots of people with depression. He himself has experienced depression since childhood, teenage years at least, was on antidepressants for a long time. He completely changes the narrative around depression, what it is, what causes it, where it comes from, and how to fix it. And when you look at depression the way that he does and through the lens that he brings to it, it lays out a whole different set of tools for healing depression. His work actually fits very well with what Dr. Mate is talking about it. The reason I'm cautioning some of you not to read this right away is because it is this focus on lost connection and all the different ways that we can become disconnected and isolated in our lives. And if you are going through and you're in kind of the heat of that painful time of divorce, having that focus on what you've lost and the connection that is actively lost in this moment could be really triggering. So please be kind to yourself. This book has good tools, it's a good resource, but if you know that you're in this moment feeling the pain of loss, this is not the place to start. This is the 6 months from now, year from now book that's going to be interesting and hopeful and give you good tools. But right now, what you need to be doing if you're in that deeper, more painful place is getting in touch with your body and starting to process what you're feeling there. I hope you guys pick up some of these books, and if you don't, I hope you at least search for some of these interviews on YouTube. In particular, Dr. Joe Dispenza and Dr. Gabor Mate have some fabulous stuff here on YouTube, so I hope you'll check them out. All right guys, thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video.